Welcome to the Battle of Newmarket, May 15th, 1864. This is a playthrough of the 160th anniversary of the American Civil War, 1864 version. As I said, Battle of Newmarket, we're playing here with Death Valley, part of the Great Battles of the American Civil War system. And we're playing this first 1864 Valley Battle that occurred very early on as part of the bigger Grant campaign of having all the armies attacking at once. In this case, what we have Franz Sigel's Union Army of the Shenandoah advancing down the Valley Pike, and Breckenridge, the Confederate General Breckenridge's Army of the Shenandoah, moving up to stop him. And in this case, we have them meeting here at Newmarket. A little bit of the backstory on this is that Sigel had sent one of his brigade commanders, Moore, down with a mixed command of units from his brigade as well as some from Thorburns' brigade to perform a reconnaissance in force and drive out Confederate cavalry, which had ambushed and fought with some of the Union cavalry the day before, or several days before. The day before this, they pushed that cavalry out and then took up positions as you can see them on the board now. Breckenridge, who was just south up the valley, came to stop them at this point. He said at this point, this is where they're going to have to try to beat them. He got information that Sigel had split his army a little bit. We had a force up here advanced, and Breckenridge went into the attack with his small army here. And this engagement was rather a large skirmish. The casualties mounted in the hundreds for both sides, and wound up eventually being a Confederate win because they actually drove the Union troops from the field on here. Moore and his units were pushed back after Sigel came up to try to support him, but the damage had been done, and Sigel got nervous, fearing other partisan attack and cavalry attack, retreated back up to Mount Jackson, and then eventually back down the valley to Winchester and beyond. Breckenridge had won the battle, but again, he had some casualties as well, about an equal amount of casualties on here. And of course, this has been made famous on the Confederate side by the fact of the VMI, Virginia Military Institute, cadets had charged the Union batteries up here on Bushong's Hill as part of this here as well, and kind of turned the tide. And part of the history is the VMI cadets. Even though this was just merely a skirmish, wasn't really decisive on both sides, although the Union did flee the field. That was more due to command insecurities than a large or a great tactical victory by Breckenridge. Breckenridge had held. They pushed him out, pushed him back down the valley, and had basically held the valley and was able to go from there. So strategically, it was a decent victory for the Confederates, but the army, the Northern Army of the Shenandoah, was still fairly intact, in that they were able to continue subsequently with a new commander to march back down. But that's for later. For now, what we're looking at is the Battle of Newmarket. So this is actually going to start at the 11 a.m. hour of May 15th. And these are our starting positions. The Union up here on Manners Hill. Their positions in terms of holding Newmarket after they drove out the cavalry. Breckenridge is down here on Shirley's Hill, looking to begin his attack. He will also have units, his infantry, which was just off map, come onto the map here in the red area here. Now these lines that I've drawn in terms of Confederate and Union actions is going to be roughly what the plan is going to be. Confederates are going to drive up the Valley Pike, eventually, going for Bushong's Hill, as well as the entry hex way up there, to drive up the victory for the Confederate side. Again, wrecking brigades and divisions will accumulate points. Loss of cannons will accumulate points. Also, as a special rule, any VMI casualties will also incur points there as well. The Union, on the other hand, will have a little bit more work to do. They're on the defensive, and naturally here, their flank is turned based upon my Confederate attack over here. And I think what we'll have the Union do is try to fall back to here and put up a defense right here about Rice's Farm. This can be supported by some rough terrain here on the Union left flank, as well as Manners Hill up here as well. I should also point out there is a special rule because of the weather. The ground is very soft, very wet, and we're going to have a -1 movement point for all movement along open grounds, or I should say non-Valley Pike Road travel. So we will add that to contend with here as well. But I think the Union can still move back here, position, and hold back up here initially. We'll see how the attack forms up by Breckenridge and his forces. Failing that for the Union, they will fall back to Bushong's Farm and the hill back here and try to set up a defense over here, as well as Union reinforcements will be coming on from Sigel and the rest of the Union Army up there. So that is basically the plan for this. We'll see how it goes, see whether we have a similar situation as what happened in the real battle, or this will be different. Maybe the Union can hold out this time. Breckenridge may be rebuffed, or Breckenridge will push all the way through. We will see. The scenario, as I said, begins at 11 a.m. It's 9 turns long, so it'll end up at 7 p.m. And at that point, we'll see what the victory points look like at that point. So this is the first battle in the Shenandoah campaign of 1864, 160th playthrough series that I'm doing for the American Civil War. So next we'll move on to turn 1. Okay, we're back with the end of 11 a.m. turn with the Battle of Newmarket here. So as you can see where we're at, you can see the Confederates have moved up. Breckenridge has moved up his troops, both Patton's brigade and Wharton's brigade, up through Newmarket itself. The Union very carefully has fallen back to Rice's Farm here and used the cavalry to kind of screen before they pulled back up the ridge over here. So that's why Wharton and Patton had to deploy here just out of town, but they're in a good position to strike at an attack up through the Valley Pike towards Moore's units, aligned across the pike over here. They have anchored themselves over here pretty good, so it's going to be tough to kind of turn their left flank, and the right flank is not quite anchored here, but the cavalry will round that out. You can also see in the distance here, and I'll try to zoom you in here a little bit to show you. We do have Sigel on the board. He's up here, and he is coming down with Stahl's cavalry coming down here to reinforce here as well. We will have more Union reinforcements coming in, the Pennsylvania troops and Ohio troops later on in the turns. But for now, this is it. So the Union's in a pretty good position. Confederates looking to attack here. And I'll just show you this zoomed in here if I get moved around properly. To attack up through here. So that'll probably happen this next turn, maybe not. Depends on how the chits go and what things look like. So just wanted to give you a brief update there. The 11 o'clock turn. There's no real casualties. There's a little bit of artillery barrage here to try to break up the withdrawal by the Union, but nothing really big occurred. You could see Monroe and the Charlottesville and the VMI guns all kind of trailing over here. They're probably set up maybe over here once they drive off these units, because they could come up the river road potentially and get up here and have a good position to fire down on the Union, as well as to cover an attack up to the north up here with the battle as it progresses. So that's the end of first turn, 11 a.m., and we'll move on to the 12 p.m. turn next. Okay, we're up to turn 12 p.m. Battle of Newmarket. So turn 12 p.m. This has been a little interesting here because, as you can see, what has happened is the Confederates have moved up into more of a striking position here. Patton has moved to the left, and Wharton has moved to the right, and Breckenridge has brought the artillery up behind and getting them into position to support an attack. Moore had executed a nice retreat from Manor Hill back to the Rice Farm, and now has a decent line up here. There has been a little bit of action, a little bit of firing here. Wycoop's, Wynkoop's units, cavalry, were up here covering the retreat, and they got kind of stuck here. The layout of the activation chits, Sullivan's units, which he's one who was attached to at this moment, came up. Both of them came up last, and also both of these technically were out of command for the turn. These guys were both technically out of command over here for this turn. So they only got one activation at the very end. And because of that, Patton could move up and get some shots onto the cavalry and to the artillery. And actually got the artillery disordered, and then ultimately knocked out one of the guns, knocked out the horses and the caissons and artillerymen there. So one gun, actually that should be 3, not 4. One gun was knocked out and left up on the hill over here. So that was a little bit of a win for them. Now, a little bit of a payment for that was fatigue. Notice fatigue is 0 for Patton. They had to take an extra activation to open fire on them and kind of knock them out. They were hoping to get some cavalry, but that did not quite work out too well. Meanwhile, on the other side, Wharton over here came to line up for his pivot, because what's going to happen is they're going to try to pivot this way. Patton coming on this way, Wharton going in this way here as well. And he lined up with the 67th or 62nd Virginia, which was up here, as well as this one, the 38th Virginia Battalion, which was up here as well. But the Union line, particularly the 34th Massachusetts, the 1st West Virginia, as well as the artillery that's under here, that was the 1st Maryland B Battery, as well as these guys, took some long-range shots at them and actually did quite well. They scored some pretty decent hits. They disordered these units here, forced one of them to retreat and take a casualty step. They forced another one to retreat here. They subsequently recovered. But their long-range fire really did some some damage on them, and kind of broke up their lines there a little bit there as well. So that was kind of interesting in there as well. From the Union perspective, not much change. They've got Moore's got his line set up over here. To the rear, we have Tibbetts lining up a set of cavalry as a second line if they have to fall back, as well as Sigel having a third line of cavalry back here with the artillery. But I think next turn the artillery may move up here to give more direct support, given that the Confederate artillery is up here and we've lost some over there as well. So this has been the 12 p.m. turn. So pretty good so far. Confederates a little rattled, but nothing they can't recover from. Got a little bit of fatigue. We're going to have to watch that coming across here. But I still think they can get their artillery up here and start hitting the Union line, and hopefully, breaking through over there, and then dealing with the cavalry here later on. So that is all for now. On to the 1 p.m. turn. Okay, we're back at the 1 p.m. turn, end of the 1 p.m. turn, 1300. And we have the battle really developing at this point. I believe we have the maneuvering in place with Wharton moving up, kind of trying to pin Moore and his units to the Valley Pike, while Patton is trying to turn the right of Moore. And he's done a pretty good job so far. You can see his units have captured the summit of Mariner Hill and is driving back. They've really pushed back the cavalry here, Wynkoop, and the attached units to Moore over here. Let me just zoom in here a little bit more and bring you up a little bit so you can see the detail of this. So you can see over here, Wynkoop has been pushed back over here. He's now with the 20th PA, 15th and 15th New York, and the 22nd PA are positioned to the flank of Moore's line here that he's holding with the Valley Pike. Now, what happened here is the cavalry was able to retreat. Now, the artillery, the horse artillery with them up here, Battery G, 1st West Virginia, have been kind of taking it on the chin quite a bit. They've been taking some volleys from the 26th Virginia Battalion, and actually both units for the 26th Virginia Battalion, and being able to knock back here. Again, we lost a gun the last turn, but this turn they're disordered again. They did get off one shot at them, but it was unsuccessful to do any damage on them as well. So it's been some firing. Obviously, Moore has started to engage. We're now just two to three hexes away. Moore's right flank has started to engage over here, and they took the worst of it. Actually, these three units were actually disordered, but they did recover. They recovered all three, but then this one, half of the 18th Connecticut, disordered again in a second volley over with these guys as well. So they've been taking it on the chin quite a bit. The artillery has played a factor in here too for the Confederates. If I zoom this back out and then bring you back just a hair. The artillery is positioned here. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. Here, and you can see down here is the VMI units, and then over here is Monroe. They've been putting fire up here, once again on the right flank of Moore, and providing some of the disorder, as well as just keeping them off balance here as much as possible on this flank, and being able to drive back, because I think last turn you saw Wynkoop positioned just on the brow of the ridge here from Manners Hill. Now he's definitely off here, trying to recoup and trying to hold on to Bush Hogg's farm back over here, the ridge going back here to Bush Hogg's farm there as well. So quite the action here on the right flank of the Union, left flank of the Confederates. I did stop them. They had 4 activations, but they didn't use all of them. And the reason why is we've got a little bit of an issue with fatigue starting to crop in. I don't want to get them too fatigued too early. You can see this unit here has Patton's units have a fatigue of 0. They're in attack mode as well. So they've got to watch out. I don't want to get them into fatigue 1 quite yet. So they just only use 2 activations. Same thing with Wharton. Wharton's only at an okay, so they can go to a 0 and then to a 1. But I don't want them too early. Probably around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock range. We'll start thinking about that. But I think they've got enough position now to flank them. Wharton, on the meantime, over on the Confederate right, if I reposition you here when I zoom in, he's had a little bit of problem. He's been able to move up, obviously with Patton pushing back over here, taking some exchange of fire over here. These units have been okay. We've got 1 unit back here, the 62nd Virginia, half the 67th Virginia. They took it kind of on the chin. They actually lost, if I move Breckenridge for a minute, he had to actually come in and help recover them. They actually lost 2 strength points in the artillery and firing up here with the infantry, and had to fall back. Breckenridge came back, recovered them. Also, the 30th Virginia Battalion over here, and this unit here. What is this? This is the CSA, E3 CSA. Okay, hold on. Let's take a look at it here. Oh yes, those are the sharpshooters. Okay. Ran into a little bit of ammunition trouble. So they had to recover ammunition as well. So that's, again, why these guys only used 2 activations over here and didn't press the attack too much, this turn. I think there'll be some sniping back and forth with the units before it gets close to get a full push on them. Because we do need to get points via making units ineffective, making brigades and divisions ineffective on there. And then, of course, back up to the north, up to the top of the map, we have these 2, which just change the level of victory if they're captured. So it's really got to be driven by points in terms of what happens. Also, too, one other point is in Bowdoin, trying to use a flank attack over here, which really didn't develop historically, but we do get a couple units in Bowdoin himself as a command, and then there's horse artillery over here as well that have come onto the board. Turn 12 or so, that have been kind of sniping at these units behind here. Now, the Union has kind of got behind the hills a little bit, so they can't see them. Same thing over here. So it's pretty impossible for them to see them over here. They could hit over in here, could have some long range shots to the Union flank over here as well. But not a huge threat, but just another thing to worry about for the Union. The Union themselves were up one more step, or one more hex further up here. They've retired back. This line has kind of stayed here. They'll probably retire back. I think they're slowly going to move back as these guys move up, because they really don't want to get into a close combat situation, shock attack situation with them quite yet. They need to kind of whittle them down if possible. But you can see it's going to be tough. These Confederate units are good cohesions, 7s all the way down the line, while the Union is only 6. And of course, even worse, when they get disordered, they go down to 5. So Union is going to look for opportunities. They'll be on the defensive, look for opportunities to attack lone units or weak units as much as possible. They'll have to watch out for their flank over here in this next turn, as well as to figure out what to do with their cavalry reserves, which I think they're going to provide some second line and allow these units to kind of retire to a third line back here before they come on. So we'll see how it goes in terms of the victory. I'm playing the Union, as I mentioned in the beginning, playing them a little cautious, having them come back and hold the Valley Pike, hold their line of retreat as much as possible, trying to be aggressive with Breckenridge as much as possible, but got to watch out for fatigue, because it really kills you when you're in the attack and you start getting the positives and negatives to your die rolls with fatigue. So there we have it. It's the end of the 1 p.m. turn. We'll be moving on to the 2 p.m. turn next.